We're looking at a small building located in North Riverside Park in Wichita. The building is most well known to Wichitans as the Girl Scout Little House because for about 75 years the Girl Scout Council used it as a troop meeting house and council activity place and also as a summer day camp site. And it has a interesting origin though, and hence the historic name is now the Wichita Fresh Air Baby Camp. In the early part of the 20th century, physicians, scientists were beginning to be aware of how illness was spread and the importance of sanitation. And in 1906, Congress created the Pure Food and Drug Act. And in 1912, the President created the U.S. Children's Bureau. And this brought governmental possibilities for funding and raising awareness for sanitation, particularly aimed at children. And so new kinds of programs were instituted, and among them were education programs for mothers and also health care programs for children at risk. And in Wichita, this building was built to become a summer hospital unit for desperately ill and very poor infants. About a mile east of here is a residential area that also contained Wichita's two earliest hospitals. There was a pediatrician, Dr. Howard Norton, at the Wesley Hospital who was beginning to be interested in this idea of infant care. They actually put up a tent in the backyard of the hospital building. It would have been a platform tent with screen sides and a canvas roof. And they moved very ill infants for the summer out into that little tent building, and they were taken care of by nurses and student nurses. And the idea was to get those infants out of the confines of the stuffy hospital, remembering that this was an age before air conditioning, and understanding how germs were spread in where other ill people were being taken care of. That first summer was so successful that they then moved to a more natural setting here in the park, and their second summer was held in those two tent buildings. In the third year, the tents burned completely to the ground just before the season opened in June, and the women who had created the board of directors immediately began to rally the community to raise funds to build a new fireproof building, and that's the building that you see with us here today. The building is, its architectural style is craftsman. This was built in 1920, and this park and the building in its setting is in the middle of a large bungalow neighborhood that was built in the 1920s. So the architecture of the building fits right into the residential area. The architect designed this building with very special windows, which are now boarded up because we've repaired a lot of them, and we want to protect them from vandalism until the building is put back in use. But these are triple hung windows, meaning that they have 3 sashes, top, middle, and bottom. The function of double or triple hung windows is to be able to open 2 sashes and create a draft through the building. And of course they have screens on them also, so that flies and other insects would be kept out of the infant's hospital room. There are windows on all 4 sides of the building to be able to create good cross ventilation. The building is about 2,500 square feet. It's not large. It has one main room that was the crib room. It's been reconfigured somewhat on the inside with removable partitions. Originally they had a crib room, they had a small isolation room, they had a small bedroom for the overnight nurses because they served the patients 24 hours a day. This building is not the first one to be built in the United States by any means. Kansas followed a national initiative. One of the first was located in New York City on land that was contributed by the Rockefeller family, and that was a very large camp with platform tents, screened canvas. And they had many different programs, not just infant care, but they had mothers, education programs, and they had summer programs for older children also. Part of the background of the creation of a program here in Wichita was the fact that in Kansas, our Secretary of the Department of Health, whose name was Dr. Samuel Crumbine, initiated quite a statewide campaign to promote the idea of sanitation as well as child welfare. He had some pretty interesting campaigns. One was called Swat the Fly, because people needed to be aware of how germs were carried and how important it was to put screens on your buildings and your houses. And also he had another one called Don't Spit on the Sidewalk. And in many cities, they actually imprinted that slogan, "Don't spit on the sidewalk," on various paving bricks and then put them on the sidewalks intermittently to remind people. I found news articles here in Wichita about campaigns on our streetcars. The conductors were to watch for people spitting in the streetcars. And this was all, you know, it sounds kind of silly to us now, but it was a very serious campaign to educate people. The Fresh Air Baby Camp was in operation from 1920 in this building until 1926, and at that time Wesley Hospital had built a brand new modern facility farther away in the city, and so they were able to create an infant ward, and the board of directors for the baby camp solicited the hospital and were actually able to move the camp program into the hospital in a special ward, and where they could operate it year-round. And so they no longer needed this building, and so they turned the lease over to the Wichita Girl Scout Council at that time. It's due for rehabilitation. To begin that process, we listed it on the National Register of Historic Places in the year 2007. That does not guarantee funding or anything. It's the National Register status is mainly an honor. It honors the significance of the building as far as the social history goes, and it also honors the architecture. The first phase is to repair the roof, because obviously if the roof falls in, the building will be totally lost. Second phase, which we kind of already started, would be to repair the structure of the building, including these important windows. We removed 14 windows from this building, took them to a warehouse setting where we could lay them out on work tables. We stripped the paint, we took out the caulking, we reglazed the glass and reinstalled the windows. We also painted them. So they are all now in working order. And they're boarded up because we want to protect them from vandalism and weather until we can get the whole building back in working order. In the end, the significance of this building is the fact that it's a physical reminder of a time when Wichitans all over the community, not only the wealthy, but those who could afford any kind of contribution, all came together to help solve a social problem and help those who were in need.